I'm Amanda. So I guess we're gonna get started again. So it's dinner time and I've got something fun to eat. So I'm gonna wash up my hands real quick. One of the most important parts of this is washing your hands before you prepare food. And I hate this shirt on camera. But it was given to me. So, getting my hands dried off. So something happened right before I got here. So if you've seen my other couple of videos, I am using my church kitchen because it provides me a lot more space in my kitchen at home, brighter, and they have just a lot of great work surface for me to use. So when I was loading the bag, this didn't happen because I was cooking or preparing any food. I was loading up my bag and brought my hand back out of the bag. My knuckles stung a little bit, and it would appear that I have cut my finger right on the knuckle, and it was bleeding at the time. So I cleaned it up, bandaged it up, and so a safety measure, this is important, this is actually a requirement in industrial kitchens, and of course my hands were still just damp enough to make this difficult though, is that you bandage up the cut and then you put a glove over it, and then you're able to get back to work. So I'm doing the same in here because I know that a couple things can happen, is that something can get under that Band-Aid or rub that Band-Aid loose, because I'm touching salmon today. Salt is not fun to get in there. I've got lemon juice I'm working with, and the other thing is I don't want to in turn contaminate our food because I have a cut on my finger. So I'm going to keep the hand covered in a glove for this meal and keep all our food safe. My family is always really happy because I come home with food for them to eat. And so this series, Healthy Meals on a Budget, one of my main focuses in this 5 video series is to try to get you plenty of vitamin D, potassium, fiber, and keep the added sugars low. I haven't been having a difficult time as far as the meals so far. I did, with one breakfast meal, figure out a way to keep those sugars low with a pancake, and a couple of these high protein meals I haven't had to worry about there being any sugar in it at all. But I've gone to some lengths to get you some high fiber and keep that potassium higher, and even your vitamin D, and I kind of did that today too. So what I've been doing is modifying recipes I find out there and make some changes. I'm either taking some things away or adding some things in, and today I've had this recipe. It's weird. You ever get these spam emails? Well, these recipes started coming in. I got a little bit curious because I needed ideas. And I ran across this lemon butter chicken recipe. And like, that sounds really yummy. But the thing is I need some vitamin D in this. So I decided I'm going to switch out the chicken with salmon today. And I did some checking because I'm like, well, let's make sure this doesn't cost too much. And the fact of the matter is yes, the salmon costs a few more cents per ounce than that chicken. Their recipe calls for 5 ounces of chicken breast. Mine, what I'm using is these 4-ounce filets that I bought frozen in Walmart, of all places. They have it where you can choose with the skin on or skinless. I grabbed the skinless so that I don't creep anybody out with the skin on salmon. Oh, that's kind of tasty. And so I'm gonna be going over this recipe with you today, and so I'm going to start with, well, come on now. It holds to the counter really well. So what I need to do is salt and pepper. So this time I was wise enough to actually put a little bit of my salt in a bowl already, and I'm just taking a little pinch in the fingers. And so when it's frozen like this, they've usually flash frozen it, and there is a little bit of salt content already to it. So I'm being really careful not to add very much. I just want a little bit. And fish really takes on flavor. It doesn't really require much of any kind of marinating time. Not more than like 10-15 minutes sometimes, because it really does. It really absorbs flavors fast. And I have not even a pinch that's coming into each finger right now. It's a very fine salt. So I'm going to take a little bit of, hello, there we go. A little bit of ground pepper. And I want to get each side here. So get the other side. And you don't have to use ground black pepper, just having some normal ground black pepper that you buy in the little tin cans, the McCormick ones, or whatever you've got works fine. That's just what I have around, and I use it particularly when I'm not needing to really measure out the pepper. So I've had I pre-cooked before we started our noodles. So this lemon butter salmon is over whole wheat spaghetti, and the suggested recipe, or the recipe that I modified from, just said to use spaghetti noodles. So assuming that it was probably going to be your average refined spaghetti, I decided we're gonna put this over whole wheat spaghetti. So that I had already gotten cooked up real quick. My instructions are basically cook those noodles to the box instructions. And so I've had my pan preheating, and I want to wash my hands again. I've been touching this salmon, and I get a little ahead of myself sometimes while I'm trying to explain what's going on. So before I touch this can of cooking oil spray, I wanted to get all that salmoniness off my hands, because there are bacteria that can potentially live on salmon, and I'm not really trying to put it on this can right here and continue to spread it around the kitchen. So usually shake it up. When spraying pan cooking spray, it sprays best if you're kind of keeping it upright. So I raise the pan a little bit, give it a quick coat. And now I'm going to take my salmon and put it on that hot skillet and get it searing on both sides. So yes, I found this frozen 2-pound bag in the store. Found that to be less expensive than trying to give you fresh salmon. And you can use fresh salmon if you want. But yeah, keep in mind that is more expensive. And the great part is I didn't have to fillet these, cut them up into the appropriate size. They're already exactly where I want them, 4 ounces each. Not too big, not too small. About as much as you need. Salmon is, of course, a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. And the big one for today is that this is where I'm bringing the vitamin D into this meal. So I am packing a big wallop of vitamin D for this meal of 482 international units. So we're actually, we're making it for the day in one meal, because generally we only have to have about 400. But we don't have to worry that we're a little bit over, because it's coming from food. It's not coming from a supplement. I know vitamin D has been a big deal during COVID, so here you go. I'm giving you some vitamin D. There's lots of potassium in this meal, and we're cooking just fine. Wanted to make sure. And so yeah, the original recipe with just the chicken and the refined spaghetti actually is only 9 international units, so we're not making much of a dent in what we need at all. So it's really hard to get enough vitamin D. So when you can really get one really awesome meal in for the week where you're getting plenty, you're doing a really good job. So I have a moment. So these take a couple minutes on each side. I've actually put here that it might take 4 to 5 minutes on each side. So I'm going to bring this cutting board a little closer to me. I'm going to go ahead and zest this lemon and juice it while that salmon cooks, because we're going to be adding this in to our sauce. And we're making a nice little kind of white, it's not really a white sauce, not a clear sauce, it's a brothy sauce. And so when you roll this lemon on your cutting board right before you get to work on it, you're helping to get the juices ready on the inside to be squeezed out. It also helps bring those oils to the surface on its rind, so that you can zest. And I'm not, there we go. I had rinsed this lemon off before we started to make sure that it had no dirt on it, because they sit out, people are touching it at the store when you pick it from that pile, rather than especially rather than buying, you know, a bag full of lemons. And I can't ever think of a reason why I need to buy like a 2 or 3 pound bag of lemons. So I usually buy them individually, and right now they're running at about 53 cents each. So it's actually the most expensive part of this recipe is the 1 lemon that I need to make this whole thing. So it says I only need about 1/2 teaspoon. And that's something I have to kind of eyeball a little bit when it comes to zest. And I do believe that that looks like we got it, because I knew I'd probably have a lot of it hanging on in the zester. Smells really good. I love when a recipe calls for some lemon zest with that lemon juice. Okay, get this out of here. So then I'm going to, I was really scared about this knife. This one in church knives, not one of mine. And just a moment. We're very close to needing to flip. And I am going to take that heat up just a tiny bit so it browns really good. And all I'm doing is squeezing that lemon. I do try to keep my hand on the open side to try to catch the seeds before they get into the dish. It's not working as well because I can't feel it with the glove on. But let me come over here. Once again, very happy the church keeps trash cans on either side of this island. So let me grab these 2 seeds out of here that I created. And so we're going for having about 3 tablespoons of this juice to go into the sauce that will be over our salmon and our noodles. Okay, I'm hitting that point where I need let me just, I only need my one hand, my good hand, to flip this salmon over. So there's just a little bit of browning that starts to happen when you're pan searing. For the most part, it does seem like all you're doing is kind of going from pink to orange when it cooks. Now, when you grill it, and you can do that, you can choose to grill this salmon rather than pan sear it. And I'm still getting some seeds out of my bowl here. Yeah, you can choose to grill that, but I think since we're putting a sauce over it, it's just fine to sear that and use some of that flavor that's coming from the salmon to go into that sauce. So move these out of my way. And I'm going to wash this off my hands again. And I do. This is, especially when it comes to like handling meats and fish too. Fish can actually carry parasites, and more so than like beef and pork and even poultry. Yeah. So really want to keep the hands washed between touching things. And it's a little cumbersome to have the glove on. It's not that terrible. I just can't feel everything like I want to. No, and it is. What I love about this recipe is it's pretty simple too. And so I got another moment with that, and I basically have everything else kind of ready to be put in. There's not much in the way of cutting with this. I made this really easy. Your salmon fillets are already bought in fillet form, 4 ounces. The garlic that I picked up was actually just already minced garlic to make things easy, because we're people with families, and many of us are at work all day, and we come home and we've got to make this meal, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. So what better than have like a really good meal and be able to make it fast and have your family enjoy it. You might be thinking, well, I don't know if my kids are going to like salmon. I have a 10 and 11-year-old at home, and they liked it the very first time I made it. So you'd be really surprised how much kids like this. So just, you know, give them a chance. And honestly, when we're doing things, it can take several attempts to get your kids interested in certain foods, and you just keep trying. An important thing to do, and it's part of something called the Saturn method, is to have some more things with the meal. So I would want anyway to serve vegetables on the side, or a salad, you know, steamed carrots or spinach. I love making up a kind of an Italian spinach to go with something like this. So, you know, but pick at least a vegetable you think the kids are going to like too. And so you give them that option to have multiple things to eat. And if they can even try a little bit of the food you have made for them, as long as you're also providing something in there that they are willing to eat, you know that they're getting fed well. So as I said, we do want for this food to have something on the side, but what I'm providing here for you today is an entree. But yes, I think steamed carrots with a little olive oil, salt and pepper, and dill sounds really yummy. You know, steamed spinach. You can do broccoli if you can get, you know, if the family likes broccoli. Anything that you want with it. Just something to add more color. And I think that really makes a really nice full meal for the family. So, keeping in mind that we want an internal temperature when it comes to fish. Okay, so we have different internal temperatures we need for different meats, but we want for fish to have an internal temperature, and there's my spatula, of 145 degrees. And so, because these are kind of thin, I'm using this spatula to help me get into the side of it. And I didn't bring my digital one. I've got the Church's kind of old-fashioned one, like real thermometer without a digital readout. And I have to wait for that little arrow to come up. So right now we're still at exactly 140 degrees. That will probably only take a couple more minutes. So while we wait for that couple more minutes to happen, then what we can do is we can talk about, I've already mentioned the vitamin D content of this meal, and we had only 9 international units of vitamin D in the lemon butter chicken recipe. A couple things I did differently, so I haven't gotten to it yet to make the sauce, is it called for a lot of butter. Of course, it's called lemon butter chicken. Well, you can reduce that butter, and I've only changed it from 4 tablespoons of butter to using only 1 tablespoon of butter to give that little bit of buttery flavor in it, because that's all you need. And I replaced a lot of that butter with olive oil, but not 4 whole tablespoons. Actually, I'm replacing that with 2 tablespoons. Because I don't think we need nearly that much. So checking our temperature again. And it takes a while to come up. Sorry, guys. Ooh, I think I'm there. Sorry about that little pause. I'm going to do that one extra flip because these other sides have browned pretty good. I just need a moment to get this out of my way and start moving a couple of these things over to where I will be making our sauce. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the salmon off the skillet. little bit of browning in the pan, and we're going to use that flavor. So bringing this back here. So I want the heat to come back down just a tiny bit, more to a medium heat than that medium high that we were searing on. And so to begin with, what we need is to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, I figured in the recipe I made for you that this would be based on a smaller bottle than what I actually own, but it's still the same brand. To be fair, because not a lot of people necessarily buy as much olive oil as at one time as we do in our household, but we do a lot of cooking. Yes, by we, I mean yes. My significant other has taken up a lot of cooking. He's taken up baking, which he loves. So 2 tablespoons here. You think, wow, that's a lot for that. Well, it's part of the sauce. Now, to me, it's a lot for most things, but when I'm wanting, yes, to make this part of the sauce that we're doing. Get that out of my way. So I'm going to let that move across the pan. And so next, kind of taking from its original recipe, it did say 1.5 teaspoons of minced garlic. So I actually bought it already minced, and I'm going to measure that out into our skillet. So, since I don't think I'm perfect at eyeballing some of these, I actually grabbed 1/2 teaspoon, so 1 teaspoon and 1/2 teaspoon, rather than trying to take a tablespoon and only fill it half and not being just 100% sure I'm getting enough. And honestly, I love garlic. I wouldn't be surprised if on my own that I would add more. I'm going to use one of their spatulas here. So we want to give that, about 20 seconds. Ooh, and it's trying to pop. And then we're going to add 1/2 cup of chicken broth. Now I bought unsalted chicken broth, keeping that sodium down. And now I'm going to start scraping the bottom of this pan with my spatula to bring some of those bits off the bottom of it and into this good sauce. Okay, so we've gotten that stirred. And we're going to pour in our lemon juice that we squeezed out. Stop that simmer fast though. It was certainly a lot cooler than the rest of it. So what I'm going to want to do is let that cook for about 2 minutes. Give it a chance to reduce down just a little bit. And we'll kind of come back to what we were talking about. So total cost on the original recipe, the lemon butter chicken, was $2.37. So you would think maybe because I switched out salmon with chicken, it was going to be more expensive, but actually I came in at $2.33 per serving of this meal, like 4 cents less. And so part of the reason is not because of the salmon per se, is that their recipe called for 5 ounces of chicken breast, and I'm using 4 ounces of salmon, which is a more appropriate serving size for a meat protein. And then I also dialed back that butter, which you'll be seeing me add my 1 little tablespoon of butter for the flavor here in just a moment. And so what's happened is butter is actually expensive. So by using less butter, I've actually reduced the price even more because I've traded that for the extra virgin olive oil instead, with just a lot less butter and using that oil to get that fat in the sauce. And it's a good fat, you know, monounsaturated fat. Oh my goodness, right? So good for the heart. And then There's not really any kind of price difference other than about 2 cents between the basically what I would call the white spaghetti and the whole wheat spaghetti. So we've got potassium differences. So our recipe has 690 milligrams of potassium versus that recipe that had 475, so we've got more. And then the dietary fiber for this, mainly coming from that whole wheat spaghetti, is 5 grams versus, did I even get? Yes, 2 grams for using the refined spaghetti. So let's have a look here. So we'll be adding in our 1 tablespoon of butter now, and let that melt. And that's where we're getting that buttery taste, but without having to add, half a cup of butter. And this is also where we add our zest in, and that wants to stick a little. So. There. Grab a little paper towel to wipe that off my hands real quick. Doing circles in the kitchen. So that butter's almost melted. Looks really good. Now this is not some immense amount of sauce. All it's going to do is just drizzle a little bit over the noodles. As soon as I get this butter melted, I'm going to add the salmon back in. Double checking to make sure that I didn't need to leave that on for another couple minutes. Okay. So yeah, all right, that simmer came back pretty fast. So each piece is just going to sit gently in this sauce. Okay, and I need just a little, that spoon, well, I really need for it to be kind of a small spoon, but I will try to do this. So what we want to do is we want to take some of that sauce while we're letting our salmon warm back through, and just spoon it over the top of this salmon to bring the flavor of that lemon butter sauce into our food. So this is why we're not needing to do heavy seasoning with the salmon, because we are getting plenty of seasoning from our sauce. And I'm going to give that another moment. Okay. So then, I believe we're done. I'm going to turn this heat off. I'm going to move it off the heat for a moment because I need this plate to serve it on. You got to have something to look at, right? So, as I said, I had already made our spaghetti ahead of time right before we did this. Helps cut down on our time because we're hitting here at 30 minutes. So 2 ounces of dried spaghetti actually makes about a cup of cooked spaghetti. So, because I only needed 4 servings here at 2 ounces each, so you usually buy, so now I'm having trouble saying spaghetti on camera. You only usually need, so they sell it by the pound, but we actually only needed half the box of spaghetti. So that's all I cooked. I'm gonna take this piece of salmon right here and sit it right on top. Get my spoon, and we're going to get a little more of that sauce over the top of everything. And it's roughly a couple tablespoons of that sauce over the top. And then I'm going to, okay, right here is better. I don't want to move out of camera. And I need to put my salmon back up on top of my spaghetti. So I'm about to run out of the amount of time I wanted to do. We're trying to keep this inside of 30 minutes. Okay, so I already had some fresh parsley. You don't have to use fresh if you don't have it. You can sprinkle a little bit of dried over it, whatever you want to do. And I just, as far as the fresh, just tore the leaves from the stems, and then just kind of hand tore it up even smaller. You can use a little knife if you want to chop that even finer. So what we've got here is lemon butter salmon over whole wheat spaghetti, and I think it smells really good, and my family's going to be so excited. So I'll put all of that nutrient content and cost efficiency, letting you see how much nutrition you're getting for your dollar in the description, along with the recipe. So you guys come back and see me. I've got a couple more of these to do, and you have a good night and have a good dinner. Bye.